Okay, we're now recording. Thank you everyone for attending this Wednesday webinar. Excited to have you here today. We'd like to start off by thanking the sponsors of the Wednesday webinars, as well as the collaborators. We have a number of universities and institutions that we collaborate with as far as presenters and marketing the webinars. We hold these the second and fourth Wednesday of each month. Today's webinar is about food marketing trends, and you can see the ones for the summer. The blue link here, extension.umd.edu/women in ag, you can go to that website and see webinars for the rest of the year, as well as archived webinars that we have posted in the past. So we are recording, and we will be sending an email out with this link. With that, what I'm going to do is go ahead and pass the presentation to Ginger Myers. She's a marketing specialist for University of Maryland Extension and presenter often at our Wednesday webinars. So Ginger, and I think you're muted.
Am I there now?
Perfect. Yep, sounds good.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, thank you, Shannon, and thank you for all who joined us today. I do want to do a shout out to all those sponsors and partners that make this possible. Without it, we couldn't do this regularly, and I would also encourage you to bookmark the site for the Women in Ag, because these are recordings that you go back and see yourself, or possibly share with groups, or maybe your farmers market meetings. There'll be something there you could show, and we can extend this reach, because I've sat in several of these and learned a lot myself. So again, a great resource. Today we're going to talk a little bit about food trends. It's kind of a fun topic. Everybody likes food, likes to eat, but we do see that there are changes on what people are looking for, perhaps the packaging, perhaps the product itself. And as producers, we're always looking for diversification or a way to make sure that we are satisfying a customer's wants or needs. That's what drives our marketing and helps make us profitable and successful. Just real quick, my pedigree again, I do work at the University of Maryland Extension as a marketing specialist and the director of the Maryland Rural Enterprise Development Center. If you Google that site, it will take you to a pretty extensive business development site for agriculture. A lot of information there for food entrepreneurs under the food processing and value added tabs, and we constantly try to keep our regulations and current trends, and again, what's happening is as far as food regulations. There's going to be probably some changes to the cottage food we're hearing this year, so that will be a site where you can sign up for the newsletter, sign up for alerts, and keep on top of some of that. Again, I work with ag entrepreneurs and new markets, a lot with food entrepreneurs these days, because it's what we're bringing online to expand a lot of direct sales, anything from farmers markets to CSA to on-farm markets. That's a growing trend as well. So what to stock all those sites with is again something that's changing and kind of exciting to see. So let's clear the air a little bit what we're going to talk about today as far as a fad versus a trend. And there is a difference. Trends are long-term, and they're usually consumer-driven. If we try to make it about products come and go, but it's what consumers want and are willing to keep purchasing and demand, and it actually pulls the business development along rather than making a product and then going to look for buyers. If we can listen to the wants and needs of customers, this is customer targeted marketing rather than a product marketing. A fad, while there's a lot of enthusiasm, it's usually pretty short-lived. Any of us who went through our teenage years in fashion know that what was fashionable one year is gone the next. Usually it's short-lived, based on somewhat of the object's qualities. Could be a craze. I put a few examples there. I mean, you can still find Rubik's Cubes. I don't think I have a tie-dye t-shirt around anymore, but it was very popular at one time. So let's make sure we're looking at trends so that when we do contribute time, money, and our marketing efforts to it, we're getting onto something that we can build on with long-term consumer growth. So how do we find out what those are? What are these food trends? You know, I used to encourage people to read the food sections of the Washington Post and the New York Times. As print material has kind of fallen away, those are still good places to go look for information on their online articles, and certainly there's a lot out there from the TV shows and the recipes and so forth, but it's kind of changed. It used to be the internet was used to do a lot of in-depth research, calculations, painstaking analysis, and you can still find, you know, long reports, but mostly today it's really fast-paced. The industry's tracking what the food bloggers, the chefs, the nutritionists, every type of diet, you know, paleo, gluten-free. We see all of this put out there in a continuing stream. I find that the Pinterest pages are interesting to go see recipes and pictures and so much more. It's much more rapid, and you can kind of help yourself a little bit if you would, before you start searching through this, kind of think of the categories of foods that fit your product or your resources or your talents, because the stream of information and options is so great out there now that you can kind of get sidetracked. But the internet has certainly made it much easier to discover what food trends are, and we talk about using that internet for research. The social media alone, if you follow any of the different food groups or some of the community food trends, food policy councils, these are all places that are going to talk about customers' wants and needs. And again, you're thinking, well, I have a product I want to sell. Make sure that we're looking at what do people want and why. So those questions come along about, you know, it's about the customers. And as much as we love doing our product, and it's usually where most of us start, you know, well, I'm going to develop, you know, in our case, my husband and I have a grass-based livestock farm, and we direct market our meats. It's a production model that we love, and we had a product. But if you think about something like gluten-free products 10 years ago were kind of on the cusp, and today we see a lot more folks looking for this, like who are your likely customers and where do they live? If you're looking at a product for gluten-free, perhaps, you know, in the center of the country where there aren't as heavy a population, it would be harder to get that done. Where we live here on the East Coast and in the big marketing area between Richmond and Boston, we have a big population with a lot of customers who you can reach specific customer needs and targets that they would express. So, you know, how many people live in your marketing area? And that's kind of what we just discussed. Now, research has shown us that for a pick your own, you need 10,000 people within 30 miles of the farm. Research over a long time with pick your owns has shown that you need that kind of population, how often they'll drive. How many people live in your marketing area? Again, depending on how you're going to market it, whether you're going to do it through a retail store. When I say market it, I'm talking a food item, or if you're going to do it at a farmer's market. You've got to figure out if you've got enough folks in your area who will buy your product. Well, we certainly in our area see that the urban markets, such as the downtown market in Baltimore under the bridge at I-83, Tacoma Park, the markets in D.C., we find folks driving in there specifically looking for enough people in their marketing areas. And then, what are people currently buying? What are they looking for? I talked about gluten-free, and that's a product type, but we're also seeing a lot more prepared foods, convenience foods, things already made in advance so that folks can pick it up and take it home for meals. That is a trend too. When we look at, folks say they want to cook, and there's some statistics that show that folks will cook, we still have pretty busy lifestyles and are looking for convenience in at least some preparation in advance if we can get it. And the customers, is there a current use or is it seasonal? You have to consider trends as to, we're going into, say, the grill season now, so lots of demand for the fresh veggies, for picnics, prepared foods for picnics and outings, and again for vacation trips. And where when you get to the holiday season, we're thinking more of the center of the table type foods. So can your product or your trend follow a seasonal bend? Again, in our own experience here with our meats in the winter, we do a lot more with stew cubes and roast and crock potting meals. We're changing over now to a lot of our marketing is on our steaks and our grill packages, and the kid-friendly things for eating outside. So it could be seasonal. And then, of course, what prices are products are consumers willing to pay? When we're talking about some of these food trends, we still have to, again, consider your cost of production, your fixed and variable cost to then to determine a price. And beware of trying to come in underpriced to get customers. That's a way not to make a long-term business. And we do know that consumers are willing to pay for high-quality products. In Extension, we've done a lot of research work at farmers markets asking folks what's most important to them. And often we have that they want to buy fresh and local. They want to know their farmers. They want great quality. And usually price comes in around 4th or 5th in the list of things that concern them. Now, that's not to say you go over the top with that, but people are willing, particularly the type of consumer that's going to follow food trends or be interested in what they're eating, are going to be willing for a high quality product to pay a little better. And then, are there already a lot of competition in your product area? Like, are they currently being served at present? And that's sometimes hard to know. From the standpoint, if you go to the grocery store and you go in the condiment aisles, there's already a lot of salsa, dressings and condiments in that aisle. Is there room for, your special salsa, your blended product, your barbecue sauce? If you can find a customer who wants your particular flavor, brand, story. Most of what we find in the stores, it's hard to get a story on that product because you're looking at a jar and the label, where if you are the producer and the marketer, oftentimes we have a better chance to tell our story. And folks who are into trends, who are following either a diet or a production style, are looking for that story. Tell me why I should buy your product versus someone else's. So what are some of these food or production trends? Well, we're learning that foodies have a budget, but their budget is set up a little different than just dollars and cents. They're pretty well informed about where their food comes from. Or at least they have the concept of what is local. Now, you may have to help educate them a little more on that. They certainly want to hear how it's prepared. And if it is truly local, they are willing to pay the premium price, as I said. But they still want convenience and they're looking for something with a little flavor difference sometimes. This is part of, again, your marketing story of how you're going to differentiate. Figure out what makes your product different from others in your market segment, and think from that standpoint, you need to know your product very well. You need to know the description. You know, I talked to a lady the other day who's making a barbecue sauce that her great-great-grandmother in 1864 had developed. And she was very proud of her family heritage and that sauce. There was no comment on her bottle to tell that story at all. And we talked about how that needed to be part of what she offered to customers about this product, that they were actually supporting a family heritage, a long-time recipe. These are the kinds of things that folks want to hear about and capture whenever they're making a purchase. Most of the food trends that we're going to talk about are products that fall into specialty food markets. Now, those are often niches, and niches are usually smaller markets that are different from the mass market in their class, so it allows for premium pricing. We can think back a couple of years ago, the organic production was falling into this category. Sometimes some of the other products that fall into this are artisanal, or we see it in the beverage market now as craft brewed items. So they are significantly different from what we call off the shelf. You can think of niche products as a handmade coat versus an off the rack one. And so that is going to take more time and experience, and allows for premium pricing. But the niche area needs to be small enough that the sales can be profitable. If it gets so big and more people get in, what happens is it does fall into mass production and distribution, and that niche market no longer demands a premium price. Again, I would point out, look at organic greens, what the price for organic salad greens were 5 years ago versus what it is now that we have a lot of product coming out of California that's certified organic, shipped across the country, and it literally has cut the price. But some of these other specialty niche markets, for food in particular, we have very health-conscious society. Could your product fall into some kind of, and again, you can't make a health claim that's not substantiated, but you can talk about freshness, you can talk about nutritional density, you can talk about flavor, you can talk about no additives, and how the production is perhaps part of whether you feed grain or not feed grain. But a lot of this is tied back to the health-conscious consumer. Again, driving these niche markets is to know that you need a product that satisfies a want or need of the customers. So you can carve out that piece yourself. Here in our own farm, we are what I call pasture-based, and we also have heritage breeds, and those are two components that my customers like to hear. Now, I don't tell them that everybody else is wrong how they produce their meat or anything like that. What I hold up is to that niche component market that's looking for my type of product. I would add, before I move forward, how do you know who that is? Well, I hope you talk to folks a lot. I hope you listen to what they say about the foods they buy or what they're looking for. And these conversations, you know, they go on at 4-H club meetings. They go on in Sunday school classes. They go on when you're, you know, standing in line at the grocery store. Be attentive and alert to listen to what people are saying to figure out what their wants and needs are. So again, you know, niche markets are not long-lived, and don't get frustrated that oh, well, I worked and I learned all this, and now 3 other people are doing it, and of course my niche now has been diluted. They are by design smaller markets, but you've got to look for ways to keep moving on. I would look again at some of the bakers when we first opened farmers markets in my tenure. There was pretty standard sourdough breads, whole grain breads. When you look at where the bakers are now, when you go to specialty farm markets or even in the grocery store, look at tremendous selection of going from whole grains, of flavors, sliced, non-sliced, rolls, bruschetta, just so much variation to keep kind of honing down into where is that next niche? What is that customer desiring? I would have said 5 years ago, you would not have found slider rolls in the grocery store. Because of the trend toward sliders, smaller portions, we see the bakeries have developed a product that's now out there. It's the same dough that they've been making hamburger rolls out of before, but they changed the size. They labeled it a want or need for consumers to say, hey, I want smaller portions. We're going to have sliders. It's a great way to serve something a little different. And so you see how bakeries reacted to that. If you are especially seasonal or small food producer, you are going to have to develop your own system. You're basically wearing all the hats. You're the grower, the processor, you're running your business, you're looking for trends, you're the business guru. It may seem somewhat overwhelming. I taught a food for profit class the other day, and one of the participants said, the more I learn, the more I get discouraged that there's so much. And I said, well, I'm glad you're learning, but remember that if this was easy, everybody would do it. And so if you have a product that you really love to make and it fulfills a want or need for customers, there is the ability to have a business that really helps feed people. But just realize that, particularly in the beginning, you're going to be the chief bottle cook and washer and salesperson and everything else in there. So just make sure that you're looking to run a business and not just have a job. I do find that some folks who get into making specialty food on a trend because they see an opening really just wanted to make the food. They didn't want to have a business. So perhaps you can follow trends, and if there's someone else who is more business acclimated, a partnership may be in line for you. But certainly encourage you to pursue your entrepreneurial bent as possible. So what about food entrepreneurship? In Maryland, we have some training. We have several commercial kitchens coming online now, particularly in the Baltimore and D.C. area. We have a Maryland cottage food law now that allows for some products to be made in your home and sold at farmers markets or special events. What we're finding is that's been a great interest for folks who want to start with a non-hazardous product to be able to make and market, to kind of test that niche, to hone their skills, to look at how to step into a specialty food market without a tremendous financial input of a commercial kitchen or buying retail space. I would encourage you to, again, at the Maryland Rural Enterprise Development Center, we do have an article on cottage food laws as to what can be made, the labeling, and where it can be sold. But I would also say that there's been some advocacy to expand what you can make in this state, though it still will be non-hazardous. And it's also going to expand the ability to market in some other outlets other than just farmers markets and specialty events, so that we can start to maybe see some of these products in a retail situation. The university does have a food for profit workshop that's run through Extension. If anyone is interested in that, if you send me an email, and my contacts will be at the end. We provide these classes across the state periodically. We'll get you on the waiting list. This class is a Launchpad Launchpad program where we're going to go over the components of becoming a specialty food processor, such as regulations, marketing, pricing, packaging. It will not answer all your questions, but it certainly will give you lots of resources as to where you can get more information, and it certainly makes you aware of what's involved if you have a specialty food product that you see a trend or you want to get started on. We see across the state a lot of different products coming on. The specialty breads and baked goods and gluten-free products are coming on out there. We've seen a trend in some of the products. 3 or 5 years ago, I would have said you would not have seen the number of cupcakes that we see. Cupcake businesses now, not just they started in some kitchens as cottage food, grew into marketable stands at farmers markets, and again responding to a customer want or need. I now see brick and mortar businesses that specialize in cupcake sales. They're looking at those, for instance, instead of wedding cakes, we see cupcake trees. We see these as smaller portion size allotment. Again, a health concern for consumers. Here's how you can portion size for children, for anyone actually, when you go to a cupcake rather than a large cake. You can custom design these. All the things, again, of what would a customer look for on a specialty baked product. If you were having a wedding or a birthday party, anniversary, what kind of things would you be looking for? And then custom designing a product that fits. And cupcakes have been one of those types of products that we look at basically filling a customer need. Now, cupcakes aren't new. They've been around a long time. But we're seeing now that folks want smaller portions. They want portability, to be able to load those in their car and go. They want more variety than perhaps one large sheet cake can give them with flavors and designs. So we're customizing a long-time product to customer wants and needs. And we certainly find that the buy local is not a fad. It is a trend, and there is certainly a customer preference when they're made known of it to purchase local when possible. Again, this is part of your story. It's got to be on your labels, on your products. Labeling can be very confusing for a customer if there's not enough detail, if it doesn't plainly say it's your product. Again, you can add your story to it, but the buy local foods is certainly a trend that we don't see slowing down at all in our area. So what we do see this year is there's been some trends to some other products. I talked a lot about cupcakes, but as consumers become more and more aware of how food's produced in this country, marketed and consumed or not consumed, they're looking for ways to be part of the solution and not the problem. The younger set is looking at, and we know that in this country we do waste food. Anywhere from 30 to 40% of what we produce perhaps isn't sold, is not consumed in any way, and ends up in compost piles. So consumers are looking for products that can help solve this, and what might some of that be? Well, we know that juices can, fruits can, and some of the vegetables certainly are made into juices. Again, if you look at farmers markets, the number of juicing vendors that are out there, again, now we're seeing brick and mortar stores where varieties of smoothies, juices, health drinks, and these have all been made out of perhaps less than perfect product, certainly healthy, but perhaps with a blemish on them. And again, using what might have been a waste to make a product. And if you have a product that can be produced that way, where the term that's floating around out now is upcycling, as a way to make something out of what we might have wasted in the past. And again, identifying consumers who are interested, I don't want to call it, in the environment and how things are produced and what happens to things afterwards. You know, I think we live again in an area where we look at the banning of styrofoam food containers in some municipalities, the banning of plastic bags. These are customers who are looking for products that ring with their belief system that we need to, you know, reuse, recycle, be aware of waste, the waste stream, and minimizing that. And most of the time we don't talk about that in food, because we talk about food safety, which is certainly important. But back to, where are there products that we can produce safely that would feed into that market segment who's looking for that type of a product. We're seeing it along the way, the trend of root to plate this year. You know, for a while we've heard of the nose to tail butchery trend, with restaurants that are bringing in carcasses and custom cutting, using everything perhaps in ways that don't ring familiar. I know of such things as pig jowls. Some people haven't eaten, but restaurants that are preparing these as well as they would a ham steak, using certain parts in sausages. It's in other countries they do it a lot. Here we had a heritage in our early days of going nose to tail, and then we've gotten away from it a little bit, but people again are looking for a good cause, a good tasting product though. These are flavors and blends that are part of our heritage that we have kind of fallen off the plate along the way, and now folks are saying, wait, let's look at how to use all that. And it's also coming along to the veggie end. Some of the root, stem, and leaf that beforehand we may have thought of as waste products are now being used in different ways, in slaws, pestos. I often see leafy greens of all kinds. You know, we used to cut off the beet leaves. Now we're using those. Anything with a leaf that can be made into something else. Folks are looking for, again, it has to be flavorful. It has to be easy to use or serve. But if it's a product that is made from what might have been a waste otherwise, folks are looking for that. Certainly chefs are driving some of this, in that they're always looking for new product for their plates. While they have some standards that bring their folks in, they have to compete too with everyone else out there. If they can have a story that uses local, perhaps uses a product that beforehand was in the waste stream, and is a complement to their signature dishes, they're certainly looking for those. So I bring these concepts to you for you to look at your products that you're making. It may be your mainstream product, but what's happening to other things in there? Is there an opportunity? I know back to my own, we sell beef and pork, and we've certainly done a lot with marrow bones and soup bones as the public looks to do bone broth. And those aren't steaks. We think of the high-end steaks in the burger, but I do bring back almost all the bones from a steer now, because I have markets for folks who are making bone broth. The other side of that is we're smoking some of the larger bones for folks who want them for their pets. Again, they see these as natural products, and for me, it's again helps with the revenue stream on selling more parts of that animal as possible. And of course, you know, diversification, and sometimes it can be as simple as packaging. It can be as simple as giving folks options on how to use something. I think of garlic whenever, the first things we're going to bring out is garlic scapes, and that's that, root to plate idea from the standpoint of a product that we know we need to pull the scapes to get the bulbs bigger. Well, these can actually be used as pesto, so it gives you another product there. Of course, there's going to be a garlic bulb, and for some, there's going to be grated garlic that could be a gift or used to store. So think of possibilities with diversification. Back in my meat business, I sell about 10 kinds of sausage. So it is a diversification on, it's basically the ground pork with seasonings to give different flavors. So can you diversify your product to give folks more options to what they're looking for? It, again, may be package size, smaller. It could be taking a mix of products such as tomatoes, peppers, onions, and putting it into some kind of salsa pack. Again, remember wants and needs. Folks are looking for ways to use this product. Keep it simple, but perhaps, again, talk to others or look online where you might find your product in a different presentation form, or perhaps different variation of what you already do. I'm back to thinking about bacons. Again, we have hogs, and we have 5 kinds of bacon. And, well, how can you have 5 kinds of bacon? Well, I have belly bacon, I have shoulder bacon, I have nitrate-free bacon. We do a cinnamon-flavored bacon. It's bacon with diversion. So, again, I can tap to sell that person my regular bacon this month, but options to try something different. Because, again, folks are looking for variety. They're looking for a change. So give them the options. Okay, I'm not hitting the little button. There we go. Okay, so I've thrown out a lot of ideas, and to help you try to sort these, it's always good to do what we call a SWOT analysis, or how things would work together. And for those who aren't familiar with SWOT, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's the decision-making tool. For you to sit down and let's say, for instance, you are a grower of vegetables, and you do a lot with fall vegetables. What are the strengths of the types of products that you can sell besides just raw product? Would there be opportunities to sell a blend, or those a way to make a slaw if that's an opportunity? The slaw, well, then what are the weaknesses? You have to have somewhere to make it. The threats might be that now we're under other regulations. But remember that these arrows are going back and forth between each of these components. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Do you sit down and write this out and think about what other opportunities you might have? Is there another group? Are there food services area in your area that are looking for these kind of products? Some of the food kitchens and so forth, while they may not be a big profit market, it is a way to give back to the community and, again, get your story out there so that when someone is looking for product, they remember this is the farm that helped us feed the hungry, or donated and can do that. So when you're looking at food trends, or you're making a decision for your farm operation or your business, this SWOT interaction is always a good little tool to run through the possibilities, and kind of look at how you can deal with those weaknesses and threats if you have raw product to work with. And again, you're going to need to develop your marketing plan. What works for you? We know the trends are out there. It's how do you capture that? Well, it starts at the top of this diagram with your company or what your talents and resources are. Then looking at the competition. I find there are very few food products that I see either at farmers markets or at fancy food shows that I haven't heard of in some way before. So there is competition out there. You can go and take a look online. I'm thinking of one of the big areas is seasonings. There's lots of seasonings on the market already. For instance, if you wanted to do an herb blend or a salt blend, you can certainly go out and take a look at what the competition is. A local product that I just picked up for our farm store it's a seasoning blends that's been stored in Kentucky bourbon barrels, and the spices are actually absorbing some of that flavor into them. Now that was an example of an herb product. If I wanted to make one, here's one that's out here that's also an herb product, but that story of taking perhaps a discarded barrel, even though it was used before, adding flavor, making it distinctive, and it's a great story about the bourbon enhanced seasoning. So your company, your competition, look in your own area about your own size, your own product, but also, again, the internet's made it very easy to go out and search what is out there. It kind of helps seed that food trend and that consumer desire there. You can search. And so the traditional marketing mix, once you've got that, to go through the product, price, where you're going to sell it and promote it. And look at this from the standpoint of the consumer, and you might even get some feedback from family and friends. For instance, I grew up in a Pennsylvania Dutch area where we ate what was called hog maw, which is basically a clean pork stomach that was stuffed with diced potatoes and sausage. And that was a staple. And but I dare say that I could sell very few pig stomachs in Maryland. It's not a dish that we all do down here. Again, it's not on the radar screen. So when you look at product, price, and promotion, that's not something that's going to fly. Even out of background, and you think, oh, but you just talked about, nose to tail and using things. You can only take people so far outside their comfort zone. So again, following a trend, you need to be different and unique, but not so different and unique that people can't recognize or see that your product fulfills their want and need. And then, of course, all this is down to the customer. Folks are very informed buyers this day, and I wish, and perhaps we'll be able to do this another time, talk about labels and packaging. Labels for your product can be a big cost, but they can also be a really great sales tool with customers. I talked a little bit about the lady who had the barbecue sauce that was her great-great-grandmother's in the Carolinas, not even mentioning that on the label. She had basically a Carolina barbecue sauce icon on the front. It was nothing that caught my attention or my eyes. Folks, you get about 3 seconds for people to make a decision about your product based on its looks. And people do buy food with their eyes. So if you're selling something in the new food trends or even your stable, take a look at your package. You're so aware of what the product is. But if someone walked by your booth and glanced and kept walking, is it because they're not seeing in your packaging or your presentation the message of what are the attributes of this product? Is it local? Is it fresh? Is it homemade? Is it a family recipe? Is it healthy? All the things, again, what might catch their attention. and they are looking certainly for more information. They're reading labels. I don't know if you're familiar, there has come a nutritional facts labels are coming out that have been changed. They now include total sugars and a serving size per unit. That is a serving size in the package itself. So you can't say that the package is 300 calories if there's 2 servings in there. So we're looking at some changes in design. Learn how to talk about your product so that you can highlight those nutritional facts again. And for those again that are looking at a food or a production method or a unique product that answers their questions, what would they be looking for? If you are a vegan or a non-GMO product person, you are looking for those kind of labels on the food to help you find them quickly. And any kind of third-party endorsement that you can put on your cart is good. Now, it does need to be verifiable. Sometimes you can see little icons all over a food package, and you have no idea what they mean. They've just, you know, rainforest, whatever. Make sure that it would be better to have one that's verifiable and recognized than a lot of smaller ones. But certainly we have better informed buyers. We've been taught to read labels, been taught to calculate unit costs. These are all things that your customers are going to look for. So with everything out there, how can you compete? Well, as I said earlier on, having a high quality product is first and foremost. And that may be based a lot on looks. You must have something that's attractive, that's attractively packaged. The colors have to be good to get people to stop and pause long enough to draw them from a competitor. Competitors are not bad in the sense that we like having several options available to us. If you look at the fast food industry, seldom will you drive through an area and only have one fast food option, because we find that folks want choice but in the same product category. So don't be too upset if somebody else is selling cupcakes at the market and you are too. The question is, what kind of product, what kind of packaging, what kind of variety are you offering? Make sure you work on your story. That's how you're going to compete. You have to anticipate production at times when there's little else offered for sale. How will you handle that? I often ask folks at the end of market when we're going into a down time, how do you do winter sales? This is a lot of planning ahead. It's where value added or that product diversification can help. In my own business, we do some pulled pork barbecue, we do some chili, we do some prepared products that I know that I will always have on the shelf, that if I don't process as many hogs or have as many chops, I have a product to sell. And again, think about size, cost, run your budgets. I will say that most customers are looking for smaller size packages than rather than large ones. We've learned this in the food industry, that how popular the half pint box is compared to pints and quarts. That folks, it keeps the price down, it gives them some of the product, and they don't have to worry about waste or whether it's going to be consumed. Or so again, do your homework, look at your competition and what's out there, look in your category. Again, there's a lot of information on the internet. The Specialty Foods Association is a good place to start. Food Liability Insurers is a group that that certainly works in insurance, but they do a number of articles and blogs about what they're seeing in the food industry. You can get information there and concepts. There's also an online group called the Hartman Group, H-A-R-T-M-A-N, Hartman. You can sign up for their newsletter. They do an infographic every week on food trends, buyer trends, what's happening out there. They are a company that the large, like Cisco's of the world, would hire to do in-depth studies, but they have a lot of marketing information for the direct marketer, the small business. You can sign up, again, for free, and these are all good places to go. Read about who's doing what in your product area and how can you compete then and fill in as well. So you do need a marketing plan. As I said earlier on, back to that triangle piece there where you were doing your product, price, promotion, and placement. This requires some thought, and it's not something that you're going to do once and not come back to. You may need to revise your marketing plan, certainly as you pick up additional outlets, or if you lose a large buyer, how are you going to adjust to that? I often think that folks are not in their marketing plan sensitive enough to seasonality from the standpoint of we are seasonal people. We have holidays, we have different seasons of the year that we do product and purchases in. We are, again, seasonal people, and we love to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries. And if you take a note from the greeting card company, there's a holiday for everything. So do you have a product that, again, fits to satisfy a want or need for any of those celebrations? So again, have a marketing plan, have it written. It can be as simple as 1 or 2 pages, and then use a calendar to mark some dates and benchmarks, but do have a plan. And so again, just kind of to highlight that plan, it is based first on customer needs. What do customers want or look for? We just went through the opening day of farmers markets in my area, and the number of customers was so happy to come back, and they said fresh vegetables, fresh vegetables. I know that's what they're looking for, but in a couple weeks they're going to be picking which fresh vegetables. They'll want to know when the corn's going to be there. When are the cantaloupes? This week, anything green and tasty was getting sold. As this progresses, they're going to be more and more adamant about specific things. You know, what can they fix? How many times can you sell someone zucchini? You're going to have to figure out how to give them options for cooking, how to develop the uses. So again, satisfying a customer's need to use with your product and having that product meet those needs. Then how do you get this to the end user? I've talked about farmers markets, but not everyone's going to go to a farmers market or a CSA. Perhaps you're going to work with someone who does have a CSA to have your product. Perhaps you're going to be in a pop-up market that your local economic development is sponsoring. Perhaps you're going to work with a winery who wants to have a special events in conjunction with their wine tasting, but different food events and trends. So we're finding a lot more contact points for specialty foods beyond farmers market CSAs, where customers are coming out to have an experience. And then, of course, you're going to have to work on communicating what you have to a customer. And we see social media on that these days, but I will tell you, word of mouth is still one of the most potent and profitable ways to get folks to learn what you have and is out there. And folks are still using email newsletters, getting good opening rates. Now, these have to be well crafted, and a company like MailChimp, that is a free service that you can use, can be helpful getting started. But you need several different prongs to communicate to your end user. but make sure that it reaches your target audience. Taking an ad in the local paper usually is pretty expensive, and we're not quite sure who's seeing it. Would be more profitable if you could go speak to the local Raritan Club some evening about buying local foods or local trends in foods. Always the opportunity there to make connections. So make sure that you're using the right tools for the right target audience that you want to work with. And with that, not sure if we have any questions, concerns, things I may not have touched on.
That was great, Ginger. So we have 16 attendees on here. I don't see any questions yet in the chat pods, but if you have any questions for Ginger, please send them her way. Feel free to write down her email. She does a great ag marketing newsletter that gives some great timely topics and hints about selling at markets, farmers markets, and sales channels. So that's always appreciated and very popular.
While we're just waiting a minute, I did mention I do see a real rise in collaborative marketing, where several small producers are now, I don't want to call it a co-op, it's more like a marketing group that are offering their products to folks in a package where you can select from their products and then have it boxed up or delivered to a site. This is part of the trend for convenience, and it may make a very low-cost way to get your product into some hands. Always, if you're going to do that, make sure you have some literature with that product, how someone can come back and purchase directly from you.
All right. Anyone else? Any questions for Ginger? Okay. All right, Ginger. Well, I don't see anybody asking any questions. They've got your contact information. I'm going to go ahead and start recording.